Have it. All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Leah Devine, and today we are presenting Blended Learning, where virtual instruction comes face-to-face with classroom practices to best prepare 21st century students. All right. I'll be monitoring the chat throughout, so if you have any questions, let me know. I did mute my mic, but it's back on. You can't hear me now? Is there anyone else besides Chesterfield that cannot hear me? Or is it just Chesterfield? Chesterfield, what I would recommend doing is running the audio setup wizard. It's in the upper left-hand corner under the word meeting. Click on that, and you'll see an option for audio setup wizard. If you run through that, that should allow you to hear me. All right, so as I was saying, I am an online instructor with the West Virginia Virtual School. I'm part of an 8-person team that teaches in rural schools throughout our state. I personally this year am teaching mostly middle school students, but we teach middle and high school students in approximately 40 schools. I'm on the leadership teams for world language in West Virginia. I am the president-elect of WFLA. I am the immediate past president of our AATSP chapter. I was also our world language teacher of the year in 2017-18 and got to represent us at SCOLT. I have a master's in instructional design from West Virginia University, and I have a passion for Spanish immersion summer camps. I've been doing those both statewide and locally, and I love working with our younger learners, getting them engaged through a positive summer camp playful experience. This is my 13th year teaching. I've had about half of my career in the face-to-face classroom and half of my career teaching blended learning with the West Virginia Virtual School. And I love them both, and I'll be bringing components from both into today's discussion. Our scope of delivery here in West Virginia for our virtual school program, we have students who are doing independent language learning. We have students who are, of course, doing face-to-face learning with their teachers, and we have blended delivery. Our blended delivery team, as I said, is 8 teachers in about 40 schools in about 20 of our 55 counties, and we have just over 1,000 students that we work with in our blended program. And we're pretty much at capacity with blended. So due to that and scheduling is how there are also some students who are learning independently, which is a different model but still using similar curriculum. Our programs, we do Spanish 1 through 1A and 1B, as well as High School Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. And our students go on sometimes into the face-to-face high school classroom. Sometimes they'll continue their studies with us, or they'll stop at Spanish 2. Or we'll have students do Spanish 3 and beyond if there's no face-to-face teacher in their school through independent Spanish, and we'll still sometimes support them and work with them. We do live lessons, and we use the same platform, Adobe Connect, to teach these lessons. The students are in class for 5 days a week, and anywhere from 2, 3, or 4 of those days, I'm doing live interaction with them for about half their class. The rest of the time, they're doing our online curriculum. And we post the schedules. I'll show you some examples of that. We do audio, chat, video with the students. They all have individual devices at their schools. They're all logged in. And we work with the whole group, whether it's over audio like this or the speakerphone. I personally prefer the speakerphone so I can get a feel for the whole classroom. And sometimes my dog participates in class as he's participating in this webinar right now, so I apologize. I do work from a home office. All right. We use a blended curriculum, and that comes from Desire to Learn. Hosted on D2L, and that comes from Middlebury Interactive Languages, which is now owned by Fueled Ed. And we set the pacing for our curriculum. We do try to cover the curriculum throughout the year, but we tell the students where to be on what days. One of the most important parts is about building relationships. We visit the students three times a year, and that's to get to build relationships with them, with the facilitators, to know their communities, and to know their learning environment. Each school is unique. The older buildings with less light versus the newer structures where they've got bright hallways, but maybe it's a K-8 school, so everyone's very, very quiet. So getting a feel through travel is really a way to get to know and build those relationships and know the communities. You'll see the graduation photo here. There really were 4 graduates that year from the school that I work with, Pickens. They have 33 students K-12, so I get to be their language teacher. And we have very small classes there. Our classes range anywhere from 1 to 20 kids, depending on which school we're in. We try to keep continuity as we build those relationships. And we try to attend community events or graduation, parent nights, field trips when we host, like when they do the Justo Lamas concerts, we try to take the kids to those, just so we get that relationship building with the students, and so that they know we care about them and we know where they come from. When we're learning directions later on in the curriculum, I'll say, I'm going to go to your local library. How do I get there? And I'm familiar with it because I've been in their community. I might have even used the internet at their local library. So relationships and continuity are important with our program. We can't always have the continuity just due to the logistics and numbers, but we try our best. I realize that online and virtual learning is sometimes a contentious topic. We would love to have an amazing, dynamic, face-to-face teacher and program in every school. Unfortunately, that's not the reality. We have a teacher shortage here in West Virginia, and nationwide, we have, at all levels, programs are being cut. We're losing funding, and I think that virtual is a great way that we can meet the shortage of teachers, but it's not a program that should ever replace quality teachers. We should be working to help encourage our students to become teachers to help alleviate the shortage. I realize there's many things that lead to the shortage, but advocating for our programs, encouraging students to study world languages are things that we can do to help build it up so that in the future, as people retire, we'll have new people coming in to take their places. Another place that virtual learning is great is rural schools. My school, where they had 4 students graduate, 33 K-12, they have 3 high school and middle school teachers there. So unless that person is talented in world language and math and science, they're going to need virtual instruction. So for that setting, it works really great. For settings that can have access to a teacher, having teachers face-to-face is great. But most of all, we can collaborate. We can attend the same conferences. We can see how to interact and work together. When we do virtual learning, synchronous lessons are great. With world language, we need to interact. We need to talk. We can get that through our live sessions. I feel like we need to have oversight from people who are familiar with world languages. If you have a specialist from another area, say, oh yeah, I can totally do the curriculum and the oversight for world languages. We're unique. We know that we need for administrators and for those in our legal bodies to realize that as well. And everyone needs training, whether it's the students for how to learn online, the facilitators, or if the students working with having their parent and they're working from home. There needs to be explicit training at the beginning and throughout of how to best learn online. And of course, our teachers need to be trained in this method as well. I'm currently training my maternity leave sub, and he's an amazing teacher. He has taught Spanish for 39 years, yet there are little things, the nuances of technology that I need to show him, and as I'm doing that, he reminds me of things and keeps teaching me things that I can do with comprehensible input. So it can definitely go both ways, but there must be training on all levels to transfer from the face-to-face experience to the online experience, whether you're the teacher, the facilitator, or the students. The curriculum matters. You can't just take a textbook and just click through it online. It's not going to get the deep learning that we want. And again, relationships and best practices are key regardless of the platform. So now that we've got the introduction, let's look at the focuses of today's workshop. It is in 4 sections. The first is how to amplify student engagement and motivation. Our second is is looking at highlighting the benefits of utilizing strategies and tools from virtual instruction that can go to the brick and mortar classroom and vice versa, the importance of bringing those best practices from the face-to-face classroom into virtual learning. We want to increase student responsibility and independence. And finally, how do we achieve higher learning outcomes via inclusion of virtual instruction practices in face-to-face and vice versa? So amplify student engagement and motivation. The limits of my language mean the limits of my world. So my first question for you to discuss at your sites are how do you or can you amplify student engagement and motivation? And it's a two-part question. The next thing is, would this be the same in a face-to-face or an online setting, or would there be differences? And feel free to discuss for 1 or 2 minutes and then report out in the chat box, please. Thank you. Also, if you have any questions based on my early slides that you want to put in here, feel free to put those as well. About another 30 seconds of discussion, and we can share some points out in the chat. Okay. And I'll highlight some of the main ideas from the chat on the board as well. Oh, these are some great answers. We have real life experiences, hands-on, doing and interacting, using the language, bridges between what interests and moves them. Yes, so targeting their interests. The cultures, yes. Relevant to the real world. Connections, yes. Investigating and engaging intercultural competence, so important. Oh, your partner school, that's awesome. In West Virginia, we've just now started working with some Peruvian schools, and it's really neat. So it's great that you have a native school in France that you're able to partner with. That's a great way to get them motivated. Yes, finding relevance, how will they use the language in their own lives? So hitting on their interests. relevance, make it personal, and make connections. Cultures. Authentic, yes. So as world language teachers, you all know this, we're the motivators. We have the great power to get the students interested and hold their attention. We can transform their lives, and language can do that. Expanding worldviews, getting them to think outside of their own culture and to realize they have culture. They may have never contemplated how things are done in their home or in their school or in their community because they've never had a reason to question that. But once they can say, oh, in this country, the students wear school uniforms. Why don't we? Or why do we? How do these compare? Or why do they eat lunch at school? Or why do we eat lunch at school and they eat lunch at home? Or looking at larger political views, depending on what level you're at. But it gives us the chance to reflect on our own culture and increase our worldviews. We can make these interactions positive. We can show how language has impacted our lives, how it's opened doors for us, whether it's for travel, for friendships, relationships, even our new favorite foods. We can, of course, show the students that we care and build those relationships, and we can celebrate their success. So in our West Virginia program, some of the things that we do is, of course, try to start the students off positively from the beginning. And that's their orientation. I'll show you some of the things we do in orientation. We try to have a welcoming homepage so that as soon as the kids get there, they see, you're welcome, here's who I am, our smiling faces, welcoming messages, and letting them know we're going to support them along the way. We use the target language from the start. And again, have success by being like, yo, you're able to figure this out. And we, at the start of our year, because we're not there, we email the students and we have them reply back to us and we make a dialogue. And in this dialogue, we say, whenever they say something in there that I can say, this is a common interest of mine. So I find that commonality with my students, even though we're at a distance. We also set goals with a path to proficiency and we celebrate their successes. And we build trust and foster these relationships. And then again, in the first couple of weeks, we do make it a priority to get there and visit and meet our students. All right. So our orientation is when we familiarize, set expectations, answer questions, and start using the language. This is done on a PowerPoint, and we share this with our site-based facilitators. If you are switching to, or if you're working with online curriculum, or even in your own schools, it takes the kids and the tech folks a week at least, usually till the kids can get onto their own devices, everybody's got to get their paperwork in. So we've found that this is a way to interact with the students, to not have so much lag time before they can actually get into our curriculum. Down here in our class, you'll need these items, and we teach them in Spanish and have little listening files, or we do it during a live lesson. Same with modeling the language. Our platform, which is Adobe, we teach the tools for Adobe in Spanish. And because we know the language is acquired when it's in comprehensible text. We use the platform and incorporate the language, and we start in the target language. You'll see that I use English and Spanish on this welcome slide, and these are some of the slides I use at the beginning of my year. The next thing I do is I introduce myself, but I introduce myself to them all in Spanish. And I point and I say, Yo vivo in Elkins, West Virginia. And I'll draw a little line over here. Mi esposo, and I show him, mi esposo se llama Jeremy. Casamos el 8 de octubre 2017. And as I go through this, I'll point to the pictures, I'll signal things, and then after I've gone through this whole slide with the students, modeling and pointing, showing off Sugar Ray, I'll check their comprehension too. I might ask them where they live. I might say, ¿Quién es Jeremy? And again, I'll be scaffolding using the language they know. And again, this is week 1, but kind of really spoon feeding it to them and getting them to respond. I'll also have them try to figure out, what do you think Mayo could be? Universidad de West Virginia. Bicicleta. So instead of saying, the Spanish language has many cognates, and we can look for those as we study, we just show cognates right here on this introduction slide, and it gives them a chance to get to know me, and it gives them a chance to go, oh yeah, I figured that out. So by the time we've spent maybe 5 to 10 minutes covering this slide, they've already successfully made connections in Spanish. They've gotten to know a little bit about their teacher, and they've gotten to use the language and understand the language by looking for context clues, visuals, and cognates. So I feel like this is a really important early step in introducing them to an online platform. Because it can be scary, just as I see in the chat box that there's been issues with the audio and things like that. These are mostly 7th graders, 8th graders, and high school students who are learning to use this new online platform. So by doing things like this, we're teaching them the language, which can be new and scary, and the technology all in one. We're like, yes, you did that. Yes, you figured this out. So lots of cheering and celebrating success. We also teach them how to use the chat box through this. We show them how to, which they usually get a kick out of that. And again, no English. We don't, well, a little tiny bit English, but mostly immersed in the Spanish. And that's a motivator because from the first week, they're having success using the language. Levanta la mano. We teach them how to signal and point. And then I go through a whole series of me gusta, no me gusta. And I use, again, chocolate, la pizza, lots of cognates, and have them click on those. So they're learning to teach, or learning not to teach, learning to use the tools by using the language. While I'm here, I want to show you, I'm here in Randolph County in Elkins. And I have students in Greenbrier and Summers and Monroe County. I have some in Kanawha County and here in Randolph County. So this is kind of my regions throughout the state. And I have the kids point to where they're from as well. So showing success in our orientation materials is a great way to get them to use the language, to not have a lot of dead time, and to have fun with it. The next thing we do is we teach usually Unit 1 of our content. Then as our second unit, we do an entire proficiency unit. And I don't know about you, but I know I've had students who come and say, I'm going to be fluent at the end of this year. And you're like, not exactly, but you are going to be able to communicate. And at first they don't get that. I remember my students would be like, oh yeah, I took Spanish, but I'm not fluent, or have a false idea of what fluency was. So a few years ago, in 2015, we switched to the Path to Proficiency unit, and giving the kids the understanding that this is where we're at now, this is what we can do, what are our goals, how are we going to get there, what does it look like. So it's a different mindset, and it's had a really positive experience. Alyssa Villarreal presented the Path to Proficiency at WFLA back in 2015, and she has lots of great resources. My colleague and I adapted it a little bit. We added some things in, and we presented at SCOLT, and then we've also shared this out. So if you want the Path to Proficiency a presentation that I'm going to show you some slides from, you can get it at my tinyurl.com/p2pwvvs17. And feel free to use it and adapt it. It is Creative Commons. That's how Alyssa let us adapt it. And we've encouraged folks to take it and adapt it and use it in your classrooms. It really starts out with a great mindset and helps the kids be in a goal-setting mindset and kind of be able to frame their learning. As we teach Path to Proficiency, we go through and show them a video of every single level. So it takes a few days, but again, it's time well invested. This is time spent in English, but we made a choice that this would be a good time to intentionally use the English language. Our little lion, we start out by having people, say, what do you see here? And the students might say, I see a lion, or red, hat, etc. And I'll put notes on the board. One of the students might say, I see a lion, I think he just ate the trainer because I see scraps of clothing all around, and I'll put that down here. So then we show the students that we use language all the time, whether it's one word, a phrase, sentences, or whole paragraphs. And we put these throughout the screen, and we say this happens in our world language learning too, and in our next language. And all of this is relevant language learning. We also show them the inverted pyramid, and kind of help set goals and show that to go up you have to to have more depth of the language as well as variety. We talk about, to be a teacher, you might need to be at this level. The superior and advanced levels could be native speakers. We talk about what kind of books it would look like that they'd be reading in their own target language and what language looks like, excuse me. And then again, we go through and we watch the novice. We watch a little video. We watch a novice mid video. And then we play games. They have to identify what level they think this is and why a string of sentences would be an intermediate level. We have them put them in order. And again, we talk about practice, not perfect progress. Practice making progress, not perfection. So again, getting that goal mindset, getting the idea that we can articulate what level we're at and where we want to go. We also focus on leveling up. And I can ask you kind of what are your favorite activities? You might say soccer, or I play soccer. I like to play soccer. And we give the kids, I always do this with my kids, just kind of as a visual, like level up, add details. And starting with this, both in English or Spanish, on level 2, Spanish 2, we have the kids do a lot of this in Spanish because they can. It gives them the idea, okay, what does this look like? How can I do this? And we discuss strategies for adding details, adding times, colors, days of the week. We eat, what do we eat? We dance, with whom do we dance? We sing, where do we sing? So it really encourages the kids. And I've seen since we made that shift pre-2015 to post-2015, that we're really getting higher level output from the students by teaching the path to proficiency early on in their. We also have them create their own personal metaphors. So here the student, he drew a hamburger. So he started with the bun, then he added the burger, the toppings, the ketchup, the mustard, all the details. There was also a poster of the ice cream cone. I've had kids do biking where they start out with like the little tricycle and get all the way up to the complex full suspension mountain bike. So it helps them kind of internalize it, and it's fun to see what they create. We do provide the students with a physical notebook each year, and we do include this Path to Proficiency plate as a page, and we encourage them to fill in the star, and whatever star they're at is great. We can celebrate that we're a novice because we're just now beginning, and we might stay at novice for a long time. But we're going to try to always push ourselves to get to novice mid and novice high and intermediate. And we're not going to get frustrated when we remember the inverted pyramid of how hard it is to get out of that novice level up to intermediate. But we're going to keep pushing ourselves and set those goals and aim for proficiency. So do any of these ideas resonate with you? Would you be interested in using some of them in your classroom? And if so, which ones? And we'll do about 1 minute for this, and then you can share out in the chat. And again, if you have any questions about this section, you can add them there. Add them in the chat as well. So about 10 or so more seconds, more if you need it, and then you can share out if any of these are of interest to you. And again, this could be done. We do ours with the online platform, but we've used the Path to Proficiency. It's all PowerPoint based, so if you do download it, you can present it in your classroom on a PowerPoint. Same thing with the tools. If you're not teaching Adobe, but you're teaching Open the Book, write with your pencil, things like that. Thinking of ways that we kind of waste and throw away by using English at the beginning, but that we might be able to use our target language. I'll give you a chance if anyone wants to share out in the chat box there. Or if you need more time, you can let me know that as well. Okay. Oh, cool. That's a great idea, UVA, the classroom management. Yes. While folks are typing, I'll address that a little bit. We do post weekly schedules, but it also gets messy. I have 15 different sections, and each section has different things. Some are at the beginning of the day, some are at the end of the day. Some have different levels of facilitators who are very engaged, some are less engaged. So working, and some have better audio than others. So kind of meeting each individual group at their needs, having high expectations for them when they're working, and at the same time knowing that things beyond, or some things are beyond their control. If their buses get called early, or there's weather. Trying to keep them engaged a lot. I'll frequently would be asking them to answer. I'll call on them, whether it's from the roster here of the participants, or just my roster that I have in front of me of the class. So making sure to keep them involved and engaged is one of the best things for classroom management, not giving too much time in between. This is actually really foreign for me to be the only speaker. I'm used to calling on the kids, having the kids interact. I also have them turn to one another if we've been practicing something, and I was like, turn, practice with your partner, and I'll say, okay, time's up, now go find another partner, practice with them, and then come back and tell me your partner's answer in the chat box, or raise your hand and answer. So making them as active in the learning process as possible is one of the things that's crucial. And another reason I think the synchronous learning is so important. Also, in my strategies and tools, you'll see some pictures of my dog. You'll see some of the things I'm interested in. And having the kids do that too, make sure it's based on their interests. Okay, I see that Chesterfield fixed their sound. Awesome. And I see I've got one school that is currently typing, so I'll give them a chance to finish up their typing. But biggest idea, just like in the face-to-face classroom, keeping them engaged and accountable are two of the biggest things that I use as management tools. With this platform, I can mute them. I can take away their chat privileges, same with their drawing privileges. So sometimes we have to do that. I also try to, if a kid tries to divert the conversation, just always try to bring it back. If the kids aren't participating, try to give them scaffolded ways to participate, and let them know I might expect just a one-word answer, a novice low answer out of one kid, but another kid who's been a superstar in the class, I'm going to push them to level up and level up. So letting the kids know that whatever they give me, as long as it's the most that they can give me, is success. Okay. I don't see anyone typing now, so we'll go ahead and continue on. Our next topic are strategies, tools, and some of our best practices. And again, the how we teach will motivate as well. La práctica hace el maestro, and it's by forging that one becomes a blacksmith. C'est en forgeant qu'on devient forgeron. I need to practice my French some more, but I love this proverb because it really is through practice that we gain those skills, and it's through practice as online instructors that we become better instructors. It's through practice as teaching that we become. And giving this mindset to the students too. We don't expect perfection, and you don't master anything by just starting out. You master it through continual practice. Having the mentality that it's okay to make mistakes is very important in our classroom. Not constantly fixing them. If a kid says something or mispronounces it, I might correct it back. If they say, I play soccer, I go, oh, you like to play soccer. I like to play soccer too. So modeling instead of being like, oh, Sally was wrong. She says this is this and that's the wrong grammar, but just kind of modeling through. There are some explicit grammar moments, but more encouraging the kids to practice, use the target language, and know that we're in a learning process and we can always become better. We can be closer to mastering, closer to becoming that blacksmith, but we must forge it. We must try. And if we're silent, we're not going to get there. And it's totally okay to make mistakes. There's a quote I didn't put on here, but the master has failed more times than the novice has even tried. So giving them that mentality that they just need to keep practicing. All right, I see we've got a little typing going on here, so I'll see what they have to say. Oh, no, okay. Another discussion point. Do you have a favorite tool or strategy for engaging learners? We've mentioned some of the strategies earlier when we talked about motivation. And could the tool be used online or in the face-to-face, or is it specific to one or the other one setting or the other? So it could be a tool or a strategy. I see that lots of people typing. Great. Flipgrid, yes. That is not one that I've personally used, but I attended one of Heidi's workshops and she showed and has definitely talked a lot about Flipgrid. I know that's something that's really popular over in Virginia. Hopefully we'll get West Virginia teachers using Flipgrid some more. Quizlet Live, yes. Other favorites? And these can be favorite tools in the face-to-face or online setting, or things that you might use with your students. Gym kit, showing relevance, definitely. Nearpod, Adobe Spark, and comics, lyric, lyricstraining.com, Screencastify, quizzes. Okay. I don't think I saw anybody put Kahoot up there, but I know that one of my colleagues uses Kahoots all the time with our students, or with his students. Adobe Spark. Okay, book creator. This is lang.com. Oh, this is language, sorry. This is an awesome mix. Nobody included my favorite, which is SeeSaw. I'm going to show you some reasons under the tools of why SeeSaw is one of my favorite to use with the students. Thank you for sharing that awesome list. So again, we want to use the strategy of making sure that the students realize that this is relevant in their lives, and there are lots of different tools that have different possibilities that we can use to show how to make it relevant, how to make it fun, and how to make it engaging. So personalizing. When I teach animals, I show Sugar Ray and our little neighbor dog Oscar. I ask what they think about these animals. I ask if they have animals. What are their animals like? So we review our descriptions. What are their animals called? If they don't have an animal, they can make up an animal as well. It can be a monstrous animal, it can be a silly animal, or it can be a real animal. And then in a later, or we had in a previous unit learned about I'm going to do this, I'm doing this, I just did this. So as a grammar review, instead of putting up a big old grammar chart, I put up 3 pictures of Sugar Ray. And we talk about Sugar Ray is going to climb Seneca Rocks. Sugar Ray looks out at the mountains. Sugar Ray just finished climbing Seneca Rocks. Now he is tired. So bringing in our own families, our own pets, is something we can do online or something we can do face to face. But I also like to have the kids, sometimes we'll have them bring in and show a picture of their pet, and definitely use descriptions of their pets. Asking them open-ended questions about their pets is great as well. And I'll have them sometimes do their own projects with like the same grammar structure down here. I've got one, and they were allowed to use internet pictures. They could use their own pictures, internet pictures. They could draw, kind of making it accessible and making it relevant and whatever kind of most engaged them. That is one of the neat things about the students being on devices all the time is they can pull clip art into a document. I also love using authentic resources. And these are for native speakers and by native speakers. But they're not just text. They can be internet memes. They can be products. They can be posters. Down here, this is a tapestry that I brought home from Peru. And I have the kids look at it and we talk about what's there. My novice learners, we talk about the colors that are there. My 8th graders who have had Spanish for a year already, they're able to say more things. There are houses. There's a mom. The mom carries the baby. And then I actually have a video of the artist talking about what are the symbols in this tapestry and why they're important. They talk about, this is in Lake Titicaca, so they don't have parks there, so the lovers, they go out on a date on a boat. And we talk about, oh, where do you go on a date in your community? We talk about how they have to catch fish. We talk about their houses, the different styles of houses. We have the trilogy, the Andean trilogy here. And so we talk about all these relevant things. They hear the artist speak and talk about the art. And then I have the kids do an extension where we say, okay, if you were going to make a tapestry of your community, what would you include? Why would you include these things? So again, reflecting on our own cultures by studying another culture. And then with some of the students, we actually took the time to draw out our own piece of art. We didn't make cloth tapestries, but same idea, creating art that represented our community. We can use humor. Je femme, je peux femme. I think this is cute with the two little cats. And social justice. A picto line is great for summarizing things in Spanish. They had information, sometimes it's scientific things, sometimes it's about the environment. I recently looked at one about Venezuela. We can also look at other social justice events and talk about current cultural perspectives and be like, okay, why is this? Where is there this heart? What does it represent? What are these flags? And we go, oh, okay, Costa Rica and Nicaragua are bordering countries. On there with immigrants. What is this stuff about xenophobia? So trying to figure out these ideas with the students. And then here we have 4 de octubre, Día Mundial de los Animales. And this is from a Spanish foundation, which they're always, I found out by following them that almost every day is some sort of holiday. And they're great visuals to incorporate into the classroom because here we can talk about the colors, the animals, the sizes, try to figure out the meaning. They're generally usually pretty simple. I've also shown them like multiple different day of this, day of this, day of this, and they've had to put them in order. So they have to recognize the months, recognize the dates, and then also talk about, why they're relevant. What is it the day of? So using authentic materials from the culture is a lot of fun. It's relevant, something I highly recommend. And personally, I find a lot of my resources on Facebook by following different groups, or again, picking up things during travel, looking on social media for memes and things, and letting the kids sometimes find them as well, though that can be dangerous, but sometimes we experiment with letting them bring in things that they found as well. And when we're using the authentic resources, again, it's a great chance to look at cognates, incorporate prior knowledge, and make cross-curriculum connections. Authentic resources are great because they give our students something real and relevant, and they're not just things that are made in the textbook designed for students. Up here I have our clients. We're going to be closed on Monday, October 8th, and that's from a poster on a door in a bakery in Quebec. So asking the students, why do you think that is? What's going on? And the students are like, oh, it looks like it's Thanksgiving. I'm like, but it's October. And then making the connection that in Canada, their Thanksgiving Day is October 8th, whereas ours is a Thursday in November. So making those connections, and it can be a simple thing. And sometimes for authentic resources, this is when we can use English because their understanding, their comprehension might be deeper than what they're able to express, which is normal with proficiency, that we can comprehend more than we can say. We can read more than we can write. But again, finding rich visuals. And here are some different tasks or tips from Actful. Age appropriate. Make the task the relevant thing. We don't necessarily need to know what every single word on this poster means if we can figure out a couple words or try to get the main idea or pick a specific one. What's step 3? So making the task relevant or the task achievable. Another thing that we like to do are classroom routines and class openers. Again, when you think about kindergarten, this is something that we think about the kindergarten teacher coming in and dressing the bear. Today, what's the weather? But we can do this without it being childish. We can do this in our middle and high school and even college level as well. We like to start out by greeting the kids. We like to have them do a little chant, uno, dos, tres, adios inglés, to get them in that Spanish mindset. Asking them the day of the week and the date, the cómo estás, so to find out how they're feeling. And that does give me an input because I'm not there to see the kid that came in from the hallway crying or the kid who's so happy because they just did a great job in the spelling bee. The facilitators often try to communicate those things to me so I can get a heads up, but it really does help get a feel. And I get to know the voices of each of my classes. So if a kid's having a bad day, I get a chance to ask them. Sometimes I'll ask them in private chat as well. Or if they're really happy, we'll say, oh, what's going on? Initially, we'll show the emojis and the words out written out in Spanish. The further we get in the levels and in the year, we don't need the structure, the support of the words anymore. But starting out the year, we do. Who's present, who's absent, and what's the weather like? And usually it's the same weather here in Elkins as it is in most of my schools, but again, ways to incorporate that vocabulary on a regular basis. We don't necessarily do this every single lesson, every single routine, because it does take a few minutes, but it gives the chance to start out class in the language, get everybody kind of in that mindset, and go through a routine, and then go into our next specific unit presentation. A strategy that I think we should all be using is using 90% plus whenever possible. And we support this with visuals, cognates, scaffolding, leveling up, and a lot of active listening to the kids, asking them open-ended questions and follow-up questions. Why is March your favorite month? Or why do you like this season? Which of these do you prefer? And tell me more. When do you celebrate your birthday? We can start with something as simple as a calendar and open up to all kinds of different questions. I'll also often have the students turn to their neighbor and ask their neighbor why they like it or why they don't like a month. So this would be a chance for a whole group and then partner activity and then back to whole group again. This particular unit we learn about days of the week, months, and also question words. So trying to give them visual reminders down here for what I'm asking. ¿Por qué? Or ¿cuántos? And things like that. So, and they have a chance to express why they like and dislike things or what they do during different months. That's a good review of verbs and action words. And again, if they say, in June I bike, all right, in June I bike, and I give them the symbol to level it up. In June I bike with my sister. Things like that. So I said I would show you my favorite tool, and it is SeeSaw. I love SeeSaw because it's a great way for the students to post their work. Kids love drawing, especially in middle school. I don't get to see what they can draw because I'm not there with them. They can upload it in our D2L platform. It can be clunky and challenging sometimes. SeeSaw is so easy. They can upload videos, they can upload pictures of their artwork, they can show me links to things, they can upload sentences. So the next 3 slides, I'm going to show you some of the reasons that I love using SeeSaw in the classroom. Like I said, they can post video, pictures, links. They can comment on each other's work. So hear the student describe the Spanish flag, and the other student's like, oh, I like it, or I don't like it. This can be set up so that parents can see their students' work through the account settings. This can be used in the synchronous and asynchronous settings. For homework, I'll have them post to SeeSaw. Sometimes I'll have them post in class as well. I love that you can search by folder and by students, and it's a quick and easy setup. And I can manage multiple classrooms, so I have different groups of kids in different SeeSaw rooms. And it's just web.seesaw.me or app.seesaw.me. Here are some examples. I had the kids, this is a 1B group. They had to write, this was my 1B kids. We were reviewing question words with 1A, so this class, they happened to both meet 7th and 8th grade at the same time. So I said, you know what, 8th graders, participate with us in this lesson, and tonight for homework, post some questions and have your neighbors or have the other students, they had to respond to it. So they posted, when's your birthday? They were able to say when their birthday was, things like that. So just simple questioning. Lily, on the right-hand side, the students I had then, we'd been working on ER verbs. So write 5 sentences using an ER verb. But then the next day, I had them level up their own sentences and level up a classmate sentence. So she started out with a libro. She expanded to ella lee el libro en la escuela a las 3 de la tarde en la clase de inglés. Um, and then she had Yo bebo el agua. Ugo added Yo bebo el agua y soda. So not Spanish there, but getting that mentality of leveling up through adding details. Sometimes the kids will correct each other there as well, and usually they're pretty good at it. And again, it's a positive environment. This room I co-facilitate with my facilitator, Kathy, at the school. So that's why she was reminding the kids to put their work in the folders. Something great about the folder is this is Esperanza. That's Lily's name. So I can click on Esperanza here, and I can see all the things that Lily's posted throughout the year. So can she. So she can kind of make her own portfolio out of this. ER verb sentences. I could see all the verb sentences that the kids have made. Here we had preposition projects where they had to write a sentence and draw pictures that went with it. Like I am under the taco. We are on top of the car. Things like that. My middle schoolers like to draw, and that's one thing with many virtual learning programs. It's not part of it, but I like to bring that in. I think that's a best practice from the classroom that is important for this developmental age. And I think I even like to draw when I was in grad school. We had to draw projects. So any age, you can say, draw a monster or draw this concept. So Ugo drew Jackie. Se llama Jackie Chan, his pumpkin. Él es un niño. Él es gordo, joven, serio, feo y grande. And I had the opportunity there. If he would have had a grammar mistake, I could have said, "Oh, he is." If they would put serio, I'd be like, "No, es serio or seria." And with SeeSaw, it doesn't have a grading component built into it, but if I assign that they write the sentences, I'll check off and kind of give them credit in my gradebook for completing the homework assignment or for leveling up. There are two versions of SeeSaw. One is paid and one is not paid. The paid version might have an option where it links to your gradebook. I'm honestly not sure. It's something where I just add a column to my gradebook and kind of will put their homework activities or their completion of activities into that. But to the best of my knowledge, there's not a specific grading component in SeeSaw. The one final thing I have here with SeeSaw is I posted an article about Day of the Dead and then had the kids kind of write reflections and comments on, it said, post your thoughts or observations about El Dia de los Muertos on this thread. And some of the kids used the thread, some of the kids posted in different spots. It's also an indirect thing about this is we're using the language, we're learning about culture, but we're also learning about netiquette. I touch on that later, but how to comment on a post, how to have respectful dialogue, how to put your things in folders, these things that maybe Facebook doesn't always model for the best. If they get on their parents' Facebook or if they already have their own account, what respective dialogue looks like. So this is a chance to model it in our classrooms and help them bring those life lessons, and hopefully they'll incorporate that then into their other online platforms. Are there any other questions about SeeSaw? Our next slide is, again, would you like to try these? If so, which ones? Or again, if you have any questions about using SeeSaw or about the routines, about authentic resources or personalizing, you can include these in this area as well. So again, I'll set for about 2 minutes. And honestly, if you have any other questions that come up that you want to discuss at this point, our next two big ideas are going to be the increased responsibility and the higher learning outcomes. But anything from earlier or that you want to make sure I touch on, feel free to include in the chat as well. Hanover County Schools, I'm not sure if you can link it with Schoology. My teacher who I use it the most with Kathy, they do have Schoology at her school, but I think that she just like I do, she transfers my grade into her Schoology account there. Same with Class Dojo. She gives Class Dojo points for when they use SeeSaw, but it's not automatically linked. Again, it might be able to be, and the paid version might have things that that work differently. Same with the Google Classroom. So far, I've only used SeeSaw as its own independent entity that I've referenced on my course homepage, but graded and transferred the grades over myself. Those are great questions, though, that now I want to kind of investigate. I also really like free versions of things, so the paid suite might have a lot more that it can do. Yeah, it's a great portfolio tool. With SeeSaw, when I had the kids, this was part of a big country project. So they had, like, this was the flag area. They had to talk about the capital, places that they would visit there. They found websites about it. So the kids had a whole portfolio basically based around a country. That was also, we were using it to review different grammar structures and vocabulary areas. They had to talk about what food they eat in that country. But I loved it because each of the students, I was able to click on at the end of the project on their name and see this whole portfolio of what they were able to create. My other students in these 1A, 1B classes this year, it's amazing. And it's amazing to have them look back at their portfolios too and say, wow, in August, I just said hello on here, and now I'm writing a sentence that has all these details. This is a little 7th grader. She did this a couple weeks ago. That's a really long sentence. I read the book in school at 3 o'clock in English class. Nothing super complex there, but she was able to put together a lot of details. So having them see their own growth, it's a great portfolio tool. Yeah, it is so cool that they see each other's work. There are tools with it where you can turn on whether or not they're allowed to do comments. You can also decide if they can freely comment or if you have to approve every comment. And again, you'll know by the nature of your students if they're being rude. I think you can also turn it off for certain students where you have to approve them. Same with posts. You can decide if they can post freely or if they need to have each post approved by you. If you're collaborating with another teacher, you can say that either they or you can approve posts. Oh, cool, Fairfax. I really hope that it is. And it works really great on iPads. Some of my schools, they have the one-to-one devices, so it's worked pretty well on all the different setups we've tried, whether it's iPhone, different like laptops, or those HP Chromebooks. So we've been able to use it on all the devices, but it's really amazing when they can just like do an assignment, take a picture of it, upload it, and I can see it. So yeah, and again, it's just app.seesaw.me. Or web.seesaw.me. And you can make it where everyone does the same login, and that's really great for early elementary, or you can have it login based on their email. Which if they have an email, when we use the school email for that, that allows them each to have their own icon, their own picture. If you did everybody logging in through the same collective login, you could still have them put things in folders, so it would be a way to do but with middle and high school kids, I recommend having them each do their own login. And there's lots of great tutorial videos on SeeSaw online as well. I don't see any other comments or writing happening right here on this. So our next area is increased responsibility. The moment you take responsibility for everything in your life is the moment you can change anything in your life. And this is by Hal Elrod, and he's actually like a marathon runner and athlete. And I think it's great to help the kids. Learning to take responsibility in the world language classroom has implications in other classrooms. It also has implications in their lives. Maybe their parents or grandparents or whoever they're living with hasn't demonstrated that. Maybe personal responsibility isn't emphasized, but these are life skills that can help them become more successful students and community members. So also the digital citizenship that we can teach in our world language classes, especially in the online setting, are great ways to help them take responsibility and launch themselves to greater things, whether it's the goldfish in the nice new fish tank or whether it's helping them launch themselves to a college or career or future success. What are some things that you do to increase and foster responsibility? And you can also put kind of what the age range is that you do, that you use these techniques or that you use tools or what you do um, for this increased responsibility. Oops. Set the timer again for a couple minutes. Okay. Feel free to wrap up your discussions about responsibility, and then again share out in the chat any things that you all do in your classroom to increase and foster responsibility. Okay, student jobs. Do you mean like roles in the classroom? Like in this project, your job is the note taker? Or can you tell us more about what kind of jobs they have? Oh, Chesterfield, I'm sorry to hear that SeeSaw is not approved. Maybe the tech people will be able to approve it. I wonder if it's just that nobody's asked or if there are reasons why. It's interesting to see just the list that you all come up with in Virginia versus the list that we have in West Virginia. There are a lot of different apps that have made it onto the approved tech list. Having students lead the conferences, I love that. Nice. So some of those jobs are writing on the board, the timer. Yes. Oh, debates. Nice. Gamifying. Nice. Adding speed. Yes. And buzzers. Yes. It's amazing how, I mean, I know I personally, I'll put on that little timer, but students react well to it as well. Sometimes we can put it up on the Adobe screen. I'll show them my phone, or sometimes I'll even pull out and show them the timers and say, okay, this is how much time we have here. This is this one. So yeah, showing the time, whether it's in a digital format or an actual hourglass, is helpful for students and all of us. Oh, or hide it. Okay, yeah. Having them help us with setup. Yep. So getting our students involved as classroom citizens, global citizens, digital citizens. I like that. Okay, I don't see anyone actively typing now, so I'm going to go ahead and advance. When we talk about respect, it's respect for ourselves, our classmates, our teachers, and cultures. And those can be world language cultures, cultures around the world, cultures in our own community. But again, we have the opportunity, and we have the opportunity to sometimes be sly about it and help them realize about respect and things that they can then take out into the greater world. So we can be explicit about our lessons. We can also teach them through positive experiences and teach them through stories. Perhaps if you do a unit on the butterfly and the monarch migration. Or I personally have, at my summer camps, not so much in my class, movie that just came out. I'm totally drawing a blank on what it's called. Coco. We talked about how great Coco was and how he wants to get across the border to see his family, and it opened up a whole discussion about travel and migration. So we can have these in not politically charged situations, or maybe, especially at the AP level, more political conversations. Again, not showing our own views to the kids, but at the same time showing respect, how to debate respectfully, like one of you said with the debates, and incorporating in different ideas. Um, Also, it might be something to do with religion, where we touch on religion, or trying new foods, or just respect for other cultures and their foods. Um, we teach netiquette with our program. So it starts, of course, with just keeping your passwords safe, but also using these tools properly. We talked about classroom management. So again, modeling, showing, restricting, deleting if we need to, whether it's in SeeSaw or here on Adobe. The other tools, addressing and sending an email. As much as our kids both need to learn how to address an envelope. That's a lost skill, but also how to write a subject line in an email is something that we try to explicitly teach in our Spanish classes whenever they send us an email. How to attach something, how to upload a file, recording audio, being on message boards. So all these are skills that most middle school classes, some high school classes aren't addressing, but are workforce skills, college skills, just human interaction skills. So if we build in projects where we say, okay, now email me this, or part of our assessment is upload this audio file here. If they have technology issues, we first give them practice activities before we grade them an audio upload. but it's helping them gain that skill set, 21st century skills, technology skills, and doing it in a responsible manner. Also, sometimes this is when the kids can shine and they can teach us how to use these tools because they may be better at some of these tools than we are. Um, when I teach Netiquette Fairfax, or when I teach, which of this are you referring to? We incorporate Netiquette into our initial orientation. So this is one of the slides that we use. We in that orientation also talk about like cheating and online translators and stuff. A lot of these other tools, actually we do. We have a slide where we show how to open up an email, where to type in the subject line, where to type in the subject, how to do that. So yes, we do model a lot of this in the PowerPoint and the orientation at the beginning of the year. Other things like how to send an attachment, we kind of teach that when we get to a project that incorporates that. The audio recording in D2L, we have a practice place for them to practice recording anything. Of course, anything appropriate. We don't want them to say cuss words. So we don't explicitly have one Netiquette PowerPoint that we use, but it's a theme we return to throughout. But we do incorporate a few Netiquette. Like this is a slide from the orientation PowerPoint. And I would be happy to send that to you or share that with you. Again, it's more overall orientation, but showing what Netiquette looks like is important. We also have a lesson that we built in about the cheating, like using online translators, and we show the kids what examples of authentic writings and inauthentic writings are, and help them see. Okay. I'm making a note about this. So like I said, I've just referenced a bunch of different PowerPoints. But let me see what we address in our orientation PowerPoint specifically. And then I can perhaps share this to a OneDrive for you to adapt to your school. And I can share a link to that. Another thing that we do are academic integrity policies, which there's a lot of writing on here. And we do have the students read it. We read aloud with the kids or have the kids read it with their facilitator. Main idea is that their work is going to be authentically theirs and not copied from an online translator, copied from a classmate, that it must be done in a timely manner. We do set time restrictions on our assignments. I think we put a 2-hour window on there, even though it's generally a 45-minute class. But that way, if something were to happen, they have a fire drill in the middle, or class gets extended, they can have that whole 2-hour window. We are able to see how long they take on each assignment, which if they complete it super quickly, we can see that, and that can raise a red flag. Or if they go outside of their time range, you're like, okay, what happened? Did you finish this at home? Or you're not supervised by your facilitator when you're working on this? But we started the whole year by showing everyone like what academic integrity looks like and discussing it, and then also having them sign off on this. We also share this with their parents, with the school principals, and unfortunately, we do have to occasionally use this, not too often, but there's even the consequence that if you cheat, you fail the assignment. I put it down as a 0.5 out of 25 in my grade book, which shows me that they got a 2%. And the reason I do that is because when I see the 2%, I know like, oh, they weren't just absent. They didn't just miss that assignment or submit it blank. Like that was a cheating infraction. So that's a little way that I use to kind of flag things in my grade book. If a student has multiple academic integrity infractions, they can be removed from the course, especially at the middle school level, not as much at the high school level. And that's not something that happens very often. But that is one of the things we let them know initially is this is a high school credit for our middle school kids while they're in middle school. So if they're just using translators and not taking the class seriously. We give them opportunities to correct. If they do not correct, then at the semester we conference with their teachers and principals and let them know that it might not be the best for them to continue into the second semester. We also work with the schools. If they have a policy that cheating equals detention, we reinforce that. Each school is a little bit different. Yes. Let me double check before. I think I can. Let me double check because it is West Virginia Virtual School specific, but I should be able to. But we'll definitely check on that. And I'll also talk with the FLAVA coordinators for how to share things. I know they'll send you all the link to this presentation later, so maybe if I share things with, we could share links to resources there as well. But yeah, I will make a note to double check on that one. And again, having the students buy in, sign at the beginning of the year. Sometimes we also have the kids do a digital signature, which is a place we will use a message board. And at some schools, we've even said, okay, we're all going to take a minute today and we're all going to type in, I have read the academic integrity policy. I understand that cheating is not allowed, or I understand that I cannot use online translator, or whatever the infraction is that if a whole class is doing it or a lot of students are doing it, and they have to sign it in an online message board. So we start with the paper signature, but we also sometimes use the digital signature for this as well. That goes along with our other communication. We'll have them post the message board. We also encourage them to tell the facilitator, tell the teacher if they're having a technical issue, if they're absent, if they have questions, if they can't find an assignment. We really discourage them from just sitting there and going making excuses and oh, I didn't do that because I couldn't find it. We encourage them to first turn to their facilitator who's in the classroom, but then also to let us know what's going on. To participate and speak up in class, we let them know that we're available via email. We're available via messages in our board. They also, in Adobe, you can private message, although we don't really encourage that because we don't want the kids private messaging each other when they're in the Adobe sessions. But some of the classes are comfortable too, just saying, Miss Devine, I can't find this, or Miss Devine, this is happening. So we really want them to feel empowered and to be willing to speak out when they do have a need. And same with Adobe. When we're using these tools, we have them, tell us, speed up, slow down, speak louder, speak softer, levanta la mano, raise their hand. So using these digital tools and really being assertive, not rude, but assertive in their learning and their communication. We also have them following calendars on our course homepage. So on these, the times are whenever I call the kids. So I call this class, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it's pretty straight up that usually on a call day, they'll do one lesson of our curriculum. On a non-call day, they'll do 2 lessons of our curriculum. But again, when we have delays, early outs, snow days, things get wonky. So I'll update this as weather needs, or if a bunch of the kids are absent or there's a random assembly, we'll update this. But we really emphasize the importance of the kids looking at their classroom calendar and following it. And they also have their I can statements. So it kind of combines know what you can do in this unit, what you're expected to be learning and practicing, and what you're supposed to be completing. We also post our homework assignments there. And this is updated regularly for the students. It goes out to the facilitators as well. And it kind of puts the learning in their hands. When I do talk to them on the phone, I'm like, okay, did you all complete lesson 5 today? Or I look at their quizzes and see that they have or haven't completed the quizzes, the gradebook quizzes for lesson 6, for example. But it's a really important skill of learning to follow a calendar, and it's whether it's posted on your whiteboard or chalkboard in the classroom or on a digital platform, or both if you do Schoology and post there. It's a great skill to work with the kids and have them focus on. We also set lifelong learning goals. These kind of go along with the path to proficiency. but they set specific goals for how to use the language outside the classroom. A lot of the times they say, I'll find a Spanish recipe and maybe I'll make a Mexican tamales with my family for Christmas. Or I will make a friend while I play my online video game and we'll talk back and forth in Spanish. One kid had a whole YouTube channel and he made a goal to post some videos in Spanish. One of the posts I have here from a 7th grader is, I'll go to our local bookstore every Tuesday at 5 o'clock for 2 months, and I'll read Spanish dictionaries and some stories, and then I'm going to challenge myself to write a paragraph in Spanish. Sometimes the kids say, I'll teach my little sister 10 words in Spanish. I really love when they put themselves in the role of teaching someone else. And they set goals twice during the year, and these are lifelong learning goals outside of the classroom. And again, it's relevant to their interests, whether that's music, cooking, um, talking to family members, looking at Spanish art, or they're just curious about the weather or Netflix in Spanish, different things like that. And then we also have them write 3 goals, so it's following directions. And they have to describe their goal, tell when they plan to do this, and what they'll need to accomplish it. So I know a few years ago the SMART goals were a big thing in West Virginia, and they had the acronym. They had to be measurable. I forget what S is right now, but they had to be measurable, timely, achievable. There was an acronym. But teaching middle schoolers and high schoolers how to set goals is crucial. Teaching them to think about, when will you do this goal? What will you need? How will you make it happen? Crucial. So I really enjoy that we have them set goals in our program. And these are lifelong learning goals related to Spanish. And then at each semester, towards the end of each semester, we have them reflect. Sustainable, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. Gracias. Merci. All right. And it's been a long road since, so this is one an 8th grader. It's been a long road since day one. I never would have thought for even a second I would know as much as I do now. I remember just starting out and learning about how to properly greet yourself and how confusing that sounded. Things happened with Miss Coyle pushing me to be my best self with 20 minutes of studying a night. I eventually learned vocabulary and grammar rules. I remember sitting down at this big table and I got into a different mindset. I was locked in and ready to learn. In the future, I hope to at least remember how to greet and make basic conversations with people. I plan to keep Spanish in my life by taking classes next year and years after that to brush up on my Spanish. So it's really neat to see what the kids, how some of them met their goals, what they've done towards them, and just that shift in mindset. And again, having them think about it and reflect on it. And these were 2 totally different kids, but just kind of their reflections each year. And so I recommend modeling goal setting for lifelong language using, and checking in on that throughout the year with the students. And do any of you set goals with your students? And if so, how do you use those goals? And while you do that, I'm going to see if I can upload our orientation PowerPoint to share with you. And these can be proficiency goals or lifelong learning goals. If anybody does or doesn't use these, I'm curious. SMART goals, nice. And again, goal setting, it's a life skill. if students can figure out how to set and achieve goals and work towards goals, that can be applied all across the curriculum and really throughout their lives. And what are some of the kinds of goals that your students do come up with? Are they proficiency? Are they language used outside the classroom? Are they language use goals for in the classroom? And do you think there is a place for goal setting in your classroom? Oh, I love the passport idea. Okay, like so it's kind of like a linguafolio idea with the actual I can statements. I love that. Oh, cool. I would love to see that as well whenever you come up with this passport or when you share the passport. All right. For those of you who are asking about the orientation PowerPoint, I ask that use it as a model and example that if you do decide to adapt something that you make your own and not just copy or use what we're using for our orientation. But if you'd like to see it as a model, you can go to tinyurl.com/WVVS orientation EX as an example. But I do ask that don't just use it, but use it. You can use it as a model. Again, some of it would be relevant, some wouldn't, because some of it's very specific to our program and the things that like how to log into our specific platform. Um, Anything else on the topic of goal setting or responsibility? And I will check about the academic integrity statement about sharing that specifically as well. Okay. And the materials that we use with WVVS, with West Virginia Virtual School, our PowerPoints, we often will make and adapt them as a team, say with our rubrics. Some things are Creative Commons, like, I mean, our path of proficiency, we started with somebody else's Creative Commons and jumped from there and expanded from there. So I both love Creative Commons. I also ask that use digital responsibility when it comes to models versus using people's stuff. If anyone want to see that has had a chance to jot that down, again, WVVS Orientation EX, as in from tinyurl.com. All right, so our last piece of this puzzle is our higher learning outcomes. So the greatest day in your life and mine is when we take total responsibility for our attitudes. That's the day we truly grow. I love this quote because it's our personal responsibility that's going to help us grow as language users and as people. Also, taking responsibility helps us become more proficient, from using those words to phrases to simple sentences, strings of sentences, many sentences, and organized sentences and paragraphs. So we can truly grow through responsibility, and we can achieve higher learning outcomes. I've got a discussion slide up here. Will you let me know in the chat, do we want to discuss or do we want to just kind of go into some of the ideas here? Okay, sure can. Okay, so one of the things I mentioned are the I can statements, focusing on communication and celebrating what the students can do. Starting out each class or each unit with a focus of I can describe my pet, or I can say the foods I like, really gives us direction as we're teaching. Well, we believe in using rubrics, and some rubrics are great. We used to have one we didn't love, so we worked together as a team to make a rubric that we could focus on. We focus on messaging. Was I understood? Did I fully express my ideas? They could be understood by someone who speaks Spanish, and I creatively extend past modeled information. If they're just regurgitating what we've shown them, that's not awesome. We want them to be able to really express. This rubric here is worth 25 points. We use the same rubric for all of our written activities as well as one similar to this for all of our speaking activities. But we made a conscious decision to make 10 points worth of just the message. The other areas are each worth 5. The structures, for 5 points, my structures, word order, punctuation, and accent marks are accurate, and I clearly demonstrate improvement based on feedback from previous assignments, so showing growth. Vocabulary, I used a wide range of practice vocabulary from familiar topics and topics of interest, and I recombined words from previous units to tell, for example, who, what, where, when, and why. So again, they're trying to level up with their vocabulary. And the quality communication is our last 5 points. I responded fully to the prompt with simple sentences. I meet the communication goal by presenting information about my life, and I support my response with simple details and may reference cultural details. And again, this is our writing rubric. That's how to get an A on our writing rubric. Our speaking is very similar, but the main idea is, are you communicating your message? Are you getting your ideas across? I think so, yes. Same idea. We created this, but if you'd like to adapt this, I will figure out how to publish or how to upload this for you. Just give me a second. And yes, you can look at it and see this as an example rubric. And again, our virtual team of 8 teachers, we meet face to face throughout the year a few times, and we try to use those meeting times to work on projects like this. And then we follow up with, we meet at least every 2 weeks online and collaborate. So even though I am here isolated in my house in Elkins, I'm working with people from around our state and collaborating, because collaboration is crucial. And if you're isolated in a school, I highly recommend you find online teams, or you find ways to collaborate, just like you're doing today by meeting up in different places. So with our rubrics, when we redid that, I also tried to redo how I'm giving feedback to the students. And for our feedback, I broke it down into the 4 sections: the mensaje, estructuras, vocabulario, y comunicación. So I use the target language there, and I do kind of Spanglish, or a mix of both. I and it starts off just it parallels the rubric. Thank you for expressing everything in Spanish. This could be easily understood. Down to when you write in English, somebody who only spoke Spanish wouldn't be able to understand this. And then mirroring the words from our rubric. Structures, I like how you put this together. Sometimes I'll say they're mostly accurate, sometimes accurate, rarely accurate. So again, mirroring the language in the rubric, and tips for improving. For example, donde vas de compras, voy de compras en. So it's little grammar things. Ropa nueva, reminding them the adjective comes after the noun. Acento, adios. So incorporating as much Spanish, but also not just including some English in their feedback as well. And encouraging them to level up, and then do they answer all 4 questions. So I'll be honest, when I switched to this feedback model, it takes way longer. So I don't get to do it on every assignment, but I really like when I can, and I can focus it on the rubric. And the kids seem to like the color coding as well. And I try to be consistent that my messages is always green, structures are always orange, vocab's pink, communications blue. I also have a document that I save as a template for this, because I start to notice the same trends. When I did reflexive verbs, I noticed the same trends so many times that I made a template and put it on the course homepage. I was like, okay, folks, reference this after you do the reflexive verb unit, and I explicitly retaught as well. So we have them read their feedback. In the past, we've not had the greatest success with them reading their feedback. So I want to show you one of our strategies we've used to help them make sure they're reading the feedback. Sometimes I'll use Bitmojis. These are fun and playful. They can visualize. You can personalize them. You can add the target language and save it as an image. Unfortunately, these are often in English. They're not specific to the content. Some kids might get offended by them, and they do kind of take time to create. This is at a Skull workshop. They said, hey, use Bitmojis. So I've also seen online a teacher was printing off memes and attaching memes to student work. Again, it's about knowing your students and whether it'll be an effective way of communicating with them or not. But Bitmojis can be a fun way to change up your feedback. Sometimes we'll give feedback on Adobe. I'll just workshop with the kids. Again, when you see common threads, reteaching just like you would do on the board, we might do in Adobe Connect. And then our feedback summary. This is something that we've started doing this year. Actually, we piloted it last year, and we've done it more across the board this year. And I can include this as well. So after they read their feedback from maybe units 2 and 3, they have to answer the question: what are some of the things that I mentioned in the feedback? And they have to be specific. And based on my feedback and the rubric, how do you plan to improve your writing and speaking? So again, they have to internalize it, they have to think about it, and they can write questions for me here. So They can be like, why did this happen? Or why wasn't this worth full credit? Or I have trouble writing accents, things like that. Yeah, the same thing with this. When I write their feedback on this, if we were doing, it would be an anonymous example for a whole class thing. But this example right here is one student's feedback on one assignment. The others can't see it. Like I said, when I saw that they all had trouble with reflexive verbs, I basically use it as a reteaching tool moment, but each of the student gets their own individual feedback. So Flipgrid's a cool way that they can do that is, oh, video feedback. Oh, that's even cooler. I didn't realize the word video was in there. Yeah. Sometimes I'll leave audio on mine as well. So, but do you have trouble getting the kids to read or watch their feedback? That was something that was a challenge for us. So that's why we had them learn or have them go back and write their summary. It only has to be at least 2 complete sentences. I love when it's a whole paragraph. And this is worth like 5 points. So it's minimal on the points, but if they actually are reading their feedback, you can tell because then they're applying it and using the feedback. We teach them how to write, like, you wrote this, I plan to do this, I will do this. We model and remind them how to find their feedback. And remind them that's on their written test, their speaking test, their reflections. And with our program, the students in each unit, 50% of their grade comes from the communications. They have to do a reflection that's always written in Spanish, and they either do a written test or a speaking test in Spanish. And those are 25 points each. Then there are multiple choice tests for the unit, for the grammar, all those things. There are little quizzes throughout the unit. All the multiple choice things are worth the other 50 points. So half of their grade comes directly from what they're able to do, meeting those I can statements and their communication goals. There are a couple of little other point things, but that's the big picture of how it works out. That is great that you train them to check their Gmail. Yes. So training them is the most important thing. Getting them on board and a warm-up activity in class. I like that. Sometimes I'll take class time as well to tell them, let's check their feedback now. Let's walk through the steps. Teach the steps again every couple units. So I'm going to get these rubrics uploaded as well to share with you. While I do that, I want you to discuss how can we use feedback to drive our higher learning outcomes. And again, you can also share out in the chat box. Yes, the pick your battle with feedback. Yes, giving a little bit. Also focusing on, do you want to focus on everything? Do you want to just focus on accent use in this thing? Or do you want to just focus on one topic? Okay. Any other points for how we use feedback to drive higher learning outcomes? I don't see anyone else typing. So my next question is, when it comes to online and face-to-face teaching, what do you see as some of the similarities or some of the differences? Again, this is something to discuss in your groups. They both focus on communication, yes. Any other thoughts on how they are similar or how they're different? Okay. So the thing that I find most similar with both of these is they both focus on um, building relationships, building confidence in students, having students communicate. And the best practices that work for one will be often the best practices that work for another. Yes, we have to adapt to our setting, just like you have to adapt to the physical restraints of your classroom. I believe with quality teaching that we can make that work in whatever setting. We just have to learn the tools and learn how to apply things. So the level of responsibility, so they have to take greater responsibility for online. I can see that. Because yeah, we are expecting them to get these things turned in, to follow their calendars, to be digital citizens, and we're not there with them, so they also have to communicate with us about missing work and things like that. Any other things that you think are specific to or different? It can level the playing fields, yeah. So as you go away from this, I want you to think about whenever the discussion comes up about online versus face-to-face instruction, that there can be quality programs in both, and there can be programs in both that we wouldn't want our friends, neighbors, or kids to be involved in. But the importance is that we advocate for and create positive programs for our students, utilizing our best practices, utilizing the tools, and that we work to train each other, to train our students, and to create an environment where our students can learn and communicate and be successful with 21st century language skills. We've got about 3 more minutes. I did make a link for those rubrics. Again, I ask you to use those as models, not just to take them directly, but to see what did we do here with the West Virginia Virtual School and go, okay, how could I maybe, be inspired by this to create my own rubric appropriate to my setting? And that is going to be tinyurl.com/WVVS rubrics 18. And I just have one slide after this one with my contact information on it again. But are there any lingering? We talked a little bit about management. I know it was brought up earlier. Again, it's modeling, teaching them to use the tools responsibly, letting them know we personally care about them, even though we're at a distance. Team working with the facilitators at their schools to discuss strategies that work for this kid. Still the same things that you might do in the face-to-face, calling home, reaching out to the kid, sending the kid an email, are some of our classroom management strategies. Also, making sure they're frequently engaged when we're online teaching, turning to them, having them answer questions, calling on them, giving the opportunity to raise their hands, having them use the chat box. So the more engaged they can be, the less opportunities they have to get distracted, and the more opportunities they have to use the language and manage. Also working with our facilitators to make sure that we all have the same clear expectations for the students, and maintaining high expectations from the beginning, starting out in the target language early on and sticking with it, and celebrating their successes, showing them the things that they can do. I don't see anyone chatting at the moment in the Vox, so I'll probably also maybe add a tab onto my website with some of these resources from tonight. But I want to thank you all for taking 2 hours out of your evening, possibly more if you had to travel to your site, and for attending and participating. It was strange to not hear the conversations on your end, but I hope that among each other you all also had some worthwhile and useful and productive conversations there. I thank you for, again, welcoming me from West Virginia to get to talk with all of you all in Virginia, and you're always welcome to come over and visit us physically and attend our conferences, and I appreciate how you all have invited us over as well. Our state conference is going to be October 18th and 19th this year in Wheeling, West Virginia. And you can always find out more about that at we haven't posted it yet there, but it's going to be on wfla.com. And our keynote speaker this year is going to be Senor Woolley. So we'll be posting more about that. That's kind of, you get the pre-save the date pre-information, but we always welcome you all to partner up with us, and the two Virginias can hang out together. So thank you all again. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, if you're ever over in Elkins, if you want to stop by, get in touch, come see our digital office from home. We can co-teach. Thank you so much. I enjoyed this. And I'll stay on for a couple minutes if anybody has any last minute questions or anything of that nature.